Hello and welcome to the Best and Worst Pictures podcast. I'm your host, Jake, and with me as always goes Ian.
Yeah.
And joining us as per usual is my other equally as good co-host, Mud. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you today, Jake?
I'm wonderful. Well, what is this show, you might ask? Well, every so often we sit down and watch a Best Picture winner and determine one of the best or worst pictures as compared to the other winners. And this time we're talking about the 52nd Best Picture winner ever, which is, of course, none other than the 1979 hit classic and rounding off the 70s, Kramer versus Kramer. And to start us off, Mud has collected some fun facts, which Ian and I have not heard of. And so, Mud, take it away.
Can I ask a question before we start the fun facts?
Yeah, of course.
I know I haven't seen this one. Have either of you seen this one?
Yes.
I have not.
I
Okay.
greatly enjoy Kramer versus Kramer.
Awesome. I've heard good things, so I'm excited.
So, speaking of Kramer versus Kramer, Kramer versus Kramer was released on December 19th, 1979, and has a runtime of only 105 minutes, which isn't a lot for a Best Picture winner.
After the last one, good.
Yep. It has a 7.8 IMDb, 89% Rotten Tomato critics and audience score. I don't think I've ever really seen a movie where it's the exact same.
We love a matching score.
77 Metacritic score, 8.3 Metacritic audience score, and a 4 out of 5 star average on Letterboxd. The critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes reads, "The divorce subject isn't as shocking, but the film is still a thoughtful, well-acted drama that resists the urge to take sides or give easy answers."
Ooh, I like that.
Now, the director of this film is Robert Benton, and I just want to make a quick note. On the last episode, I kept calling Michael Cinemo. That's my fault. I'm dyslexic, probably.
My bad.
Benton is actually largely known for his writing. Two of his biggest writing credits include Bonnie and Clyde from 1967 and Superman from 1978.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Here's a fun fact for you. Back in 1968, he was nominated for Best Original Screenplay twice in the same year. One for Bonnie and Clyde and one for a film called The Late Show. Now, moving on to our first actor, we have Dustin Hoffman. He's known for The Tale of Dustboro from 2008. Now, for a fun fact about Mr. Hoffman, Jake, in Midnight Cowboy, you mentioned the fact that your father is named Dustin.
It is.
Dustin Hoffman has a son named Jacob.
No shot.
Yep.
That is so funny.
Who is also an actor.
Reverse Jake.
That's really funny.
Now, moving on from that, we have actress, our second lead is Meryl Streep. She's known for The Devil Wears Prada, 2006, and Florence Foster Jenkins from 2016. Fun fact, this is her 5th film ever in her career. Deer Hunter was her second.
I was going to say, fun fact, 2 in a row.
Yeah. Deer Hunter was her second film ever.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
The first film she was ever in was Julia, which we talked about in the Annie Hall episode.
Yes, we did.
And finally, we have Jane Alexander. She's known for All the President's Men, 1976, and Terminator Salvation, 2008.
What a eclectic 2 films.
Yeah, she's also from Boston. So shout out to home team representation. Now, moving on, other films that came out this year include Mad Max, Alien, The Warriors, Monty Python's Life of Brian, Moonraker, Star Trek The Motion Picture, The Muppet Movie, Hair, The Amityville Horror, Rocky II, Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, The China Syndrome, Dracula A Love Story, More American Graffiti, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, All That Jazz, Breaking Away, Norma Ray, and a little war movie I don't know if you guys have heard of. It's called Apocalypse Now.
There's some heat. You said Alien?
Mm-hmm. Rocky II,
Dude.
the first Mad Max.
Yeah, you said some slightly perturbed Maximum.
Yeah.
He is not that mad in that film. But there's some
Ins-
fucking heat. And I want to break the wall for the audience. We're watching 2 films from the same day, same year.
Yeah,
today.
we're actually recording our commentary for Rocky II today. After
That's
this.
hilarious.
Awesome.
So here are some production facts. Hoffman was, quote, the only actor envisioned for the lead role. Hoffman actually initially turned down the role because he himself was going through a divorce at the time.
Interesting.
And he wanted to leave Hollywood and return to stage and theater acting. Other actors who were considered before Hoffman and eventually accepted, Jon Voight, his co-star from Midnight Cowboy.
Awesome.
And then the brothers Corleone, James Caan and Al Pacino. So like the other 3 big names of Hollywood. Streep was initially cast for the role of Phyllis, but managed to, quote, force her way into an audition for the lead. Hoffman endorsed Streep's for the role due to the recent death of John Cazale, because they were dating at the time, and he believed that it would give her a still fresh pain to draw from for the performance.
That's kind of fucked up.
So anyways, this film infamously led to a very long and deep feud between Streep and Hoffman. Streep has claimed in an interview that Hoffman groped her while they were working on the film and pushed back on the idea of Streep wanting to make her character more sympathetic. The original script has her character being a rather harsh woman. Streep also claims that Hoffman would hurl insults and obscenities at Streep as well as taunt her by name-dropping Kazali to her.
Yeah, you just wanted her to have the passion, you know?
Hoffman
fucked up,
used
man.
the method acting defense. We love method acting.
I love
Mhm.
Jared
We
Leto.
love method acting. It's always
Wow.
used when people are playing dicks and no one else. Anyways, Streep also said as recently as 2018 that Hoffman at one point in the filming just slapped her in the fucking face. Just full on, full force. Just
Jesus.
bam, right across the jawline.
Insanity.
Streep also wrote her courtroom monologue herself. And fun little fun fact, in the courtroom scenes, there's a stenographer, in the background taking notes. She's actually a real stenographer. She's not just like an actress pretending to be a
I
stenographer.
figured.
In between takes, Hoffman would chat to her and ask her about her life and ask her if she ever worked real divorce cases. The stenographer said she used to and got burnt out because they were emotionally painful, so now she does homicide, which she claimed were much easier to handle.
Probably, yeah.
I know, but that's just really funny.
That
Like,
is
oh,
really funny.
it was a little too heavy on my soul. Now I do murder cases.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to the award show itself, Johnny Carson was the host. The boy who plays the child in this film, John Henry, was nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role at the age of 8 and became the youngest person nominated for this award as of, I think, still standing.
Okay, that makes sense. I can't think of anything that wouldn't make that still standing.
I don't believe anyone else has been nominated younger. I think the youngest nominated woman was 9.
Yeah. I think Shirley Temple got an Oscar nomination a long time ago. Not recently. She wouldn't be alive recently.
She's been dead. She's been dead.
Super dead.
Band-Aid.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I can look it up.
Yeah, please do. Charlton Heston presented Best Picture. Kermit the Frog performed a Rainbow Connection from the Muppet movie.
Okay. For one, you didn't mention that the Muppet movie came out.
I
this
did. It
year.
was in the it was in
Oh,
the
was it?
it was
Okay.
in the other films that came out this
You're right.
year.
You're right.
Yeah, the
my
Muppet
bad.
movie.
My bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, not what I expected. That's all.
Yeah, Kermit the Frog performed Rainbow Connection from the Muppet movie.
Hey, a banger.
It didn't win Best Original Song.
That's fucking that's a crime. For
It
one.
lost to It Goes Like It Goes from Norma Ray.
As.
So if I
That's
may
not
interrupt,
Rainbow
fun
Connection.
fact.
Yes, please.
What was the exact question?
The question was, is Justin Henry still the youngest person to be nominated in Academy Award history?
The youngest nominee of an acting award in Oscar history is still Justin Henry at age 8.
Thank you.
I do want to point out you called him John Henry at first. And
My
I was
apologies.
Oh, like Steele?
My apologies. I have Justin Henry directly below Johnny Carson, so I think I just
Understandable.
read the names together.
With the youngest winner ever being Tatum O'Neal at age 10. For Over Moon.
So in a repeat from last week. Kramer vs. Kramer entered the night tied with All That Jazz with 9 nominations apiece. Kramer vs. Kramer went home the winner with 5 wins.
Not a bad ratio.
Not bad at all. Let's get into the awards nominated. Gerald B. Greenberg was nominated for Best Editing, but he lost to Alan Haim for All That Jazz. Nestor Almendros was nominated for Best Cinematography, but lost to Vittorio Storaro for Apocalypse Now. Almendros won in the last episode and beat the cinematographer for The Deer Hunter. Fun fucking fact.
That's a very fun fact.
Mm-hmm. Jane Alexander was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, but lost to Meryl Streep for this film.
Okay.
Justin Henry nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but he lost to Melvin Douglas for being there. Other nominees included Robert Duvall as Bill Kilgore from Apocalypse Now, and Frederick Forrest, who plays Chef in Apocalypse Now for his role in The Rose. And for awards won, Robert Benton took home Best Screenplay based on material from another medium, and also Best Director. He beat Francis Ford Coppola for Apocalypse Now in both of those categories. I have thoughts about that.
We all have thoughts about that, I think.
Meryl Streep took home Best Supporting Actress. Dustin Hoffman took home Best Actor, beating Al Pacino for And Justice for All and Jack Lemmon for The China Syndrome. And lastly, it took home Best Picture, beating Norma Ray, Breaking Away, All That Jazz, and Apocalypse Now. And lastly, on May 29th, 1979, Mary Pickford, born Gladys Louise Smith, passed away at the age of 87 due to complications from a cerebral hemorrhage she had suffered earlier in the week. She was laid to rest at the Garden of Memory of the Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery in Glendale, California, And with that, we have concluded our Mary Pickford facts.
All right.
Right
so
at the end of the 70s.
if I may chime in slightly, the audience should probably know about this. I don't know how much of this is on recording. It's mostly been off recording, but for 51 episodes up to this point, Mud has told us constantly, wait till we get to 1979. I'll talk about Apocalypse Now. I swear to God. So here we are at that episode.
And Mary Pickford's dead.
And
That
Mary
too.
Pickford's dead.
I mean,
too.
for our whole lives. But also.
So a monumental episode in two important regards, and it's the end of the 70s, so 2.5.
I am in an interesting spot because I'm also the only person here who's seen Kramer versus Kramer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like Kramer versus Kramer a lot. I think it is a very well acted, well directed drama about a divorce. And it has a very interesting lens of the idea of like fatherhood and quote unquote blame in a divorce.
Sure.
You know, and like just that narrative, it says a lot about like how dads, especially back then, were kind of seen in like their role as like family providers, you know, like what is their role if not just to be the monetary, you know, source for the family? Like what does it mean to be a father? Apocalypse Now is one of the greatest fucking movies ever made.
Apocalypse Now is a banger.
And
I can't
it
say
didn't win Best Picture. And I'm more mad about that because the Vietnam movie that won is The Deer Hunter. And I don't
Yeah.
like The Deer Hunter.
I think, Mud, you would particularly be insulted if they came out the same year in Deer Hunter.
I
won,
would be fucking fuming. I would have given Deer Hunter a 0.
out of spite.
Out of spite. Out of pure spite, I would have given it a 0. And I didn't give it a good score. I think I gave it like a 3.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So I have my thoughts, but we will save them for after the film because at the end of the day, this is not a podcast about films that almost won Best Picture.
You know what, though? We have exclaimed in some years that we've seen other nominees. That
Mhm. Why the fuck
we-
didn't this win?
Yeah, basically. Why
Yeah.
the fuck did they anyhow?
And not for nothing, but like, this isn't,
My
this
point
isn't
is,
even a case where like we happen to have seen the other nominee. We have a commentary on the channel.
technically
it's
that
so
is the
good.
Redux, which is the extended version.
Yeah,
but
but,
like
like-
still,
The movie's so good.
that movie's fantastic.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I hope, because when Marriage Story came out, I heard a lot of parallels between
Oh, yeah.
Marriage Story and Kramer versus Kramer.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, I know very little about Kramer versus Kramer, and I've heard it's fantastic. So I am excited to watch this and see how it works against the nominees. I've also heard All That Jazz is actually really good too.
Same actually.
So I'm excited to explore this and excited to see what this is all about. That being said, if I give it anything less than a 10, Apocalypse Now should have won.
Mhm.
I completely concur. I like Kramer versus Kramer a lot.
Even if I give Kramer versus Kramer a 10, it might not be as strong of a 10 as Apocalypse Now is.
I didn't give Apocalypse Now a 10.
No,
No,
I think
why
you
not? Why do you hate it?
It was
I think
like
you
an
give it like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, right in that realm. I liked it a lot. Obviously.
No, yeah.
Loved it. But
Jake, why did you didn't give it a 10? Why did you hate
I
it?
was just gonna say, if Kramer vs. Kramer is just out of nowhere a fucking masterpiece, then I would like this more than Apocalypse Now, much to Mud's chagrin. We'll find out, though. I'm really excited. For
I will
that.
skin you.
We will find out.
I
If I
mean,
get skinned.
I've
or
said
not.
this before. I have a top 10 personal favorites. They're basically movies that, like, if you wanted to get to know me, watch these 10 films. You will understand what I like about film.
Mhm.
You will understand me a little bit. Apocalypse Now is number 4 on that list.
Why do you hate it? It's not. It's top
It's
three.
not even
It
number
is
1.
just outside of the podium positions.
Mhm. All right. Well, I think we've gotten everything we need to say out of the way. I'm
Mhm.
really excited for this movie. We'll see you guys in a few seconds. So we just watched Kramer versus Kramer. How are we feeling?
I
Good.
feel great.
Yeah.
I also feel fucking great. I'm gonna say it right now before we get into the discussion of the movie itself. Best decade of best pictures
So far.
so far. Easy.
Best decade of best pictures so far.
I know it was hotly contended with the 20s, which had literally 2. But no, this is the best collection of 10 films that we've seen out of all the collections of 10 films that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
There was like 3 bad ones,
Yep. It is spectacular in every way.
which we will talk about in our best to worst pictures ranked best to worst for the 70s.
Yes,
That's such a mouthful, but
It
I love
is.
I don't even think I got it right.
It's so good. All right.
Well,
Well,
for now, we're talking Kramer versus Kramer.
I usually ask
Who do
who
you
wants
think
to
won?
start.
Kramer.
it. Me too.
Kramer won, Kramer lost.
I will say I'm gonna take a back seat for this one, fellas, since this is a new movie to the both of you.
It is.
I want you guys to drive this conversation.
I'll start. I never start. I'll switch it up today.
You do really never start.
I like the editing. There's a lot of cuts in this that like cut at the perfect moment to make it flow to the next scene. Sometimes for like comedic effect, like when he's just babbling on and it cuts back to the courthouse. But also like just transition wise, like when she zips her suitcase at the start and then just cuts right to him talking about his job, like completely oblivious. I like the editing a lot. I think it does wonders for the pace and for the story because it covers a lot of time. There's like a year and a half.
15 months.
That's a big deal.
So a year and 3 months, year and 4 months,
That's
depending. Because, there are probably days.
It's about a year and a half because I think after the court case too, deliberation.
True.
If I may, because I kind of want to hear your side. I really want to get to the meaty question. So at the start of the movie, like the first like 30, 40 minutes, I was like, wow, they're portraying both sides pretty well. I want to ask you guys this. By the end of the movie, do you think this film does a good job portraying both sides of the argument?
Yeah, I think it does. I think we see it a lot in the court scene where we don't know. So I'm just going to go through the whole cycle as I see it. We don't really know what he did, but we know she's leaving him. Transitions to she's gone. He has to learn how to be a parent. His work is the most important thing in his life. And the entire film is just a timeline of that going whoop and crossing over to a point where he's trying to juggle it. It's getting closer. Kid is more important than work. He gets let go from work. And at that point, I don't think he really cares about getting let go from work, to be quite honest with you, because it's not as important. His only like feelings about it were because she was fighting him for the kid and he needed a job.
That's the only reason he was driven to get a job at all.
Only reason.
Yeah, he would have taken time off work.
He would have taken time. He would have looked around longer. But that was the important thing for him. And it's really interesting to see that dynamic. We understand both sides of the argument because for the time prior, he probably wasn't a very good father. But it kind of stems from the fact that he was the quote quote primary breadwinner. I need to go to work. I need to make this money. I'm home from work. He's probably basically almost asleep by the time he comes home from work, so he doesn't see him a lot. And it's that old school cycle of man bread, woman home that perpetuates. That's just like cultural society at that time period. So I don't particularly blame him. Could he have been a better father? Absolutely. But the second it came to fruition, he was. Regardless of whether it was perfect or not, it wasn't. But it wasn't even, it felt like a pretty seamless transition for him in the fact that he started it, and he was a little bit impatient and didn't realize that a kid is a kid, and he was treating him like an adult a little bit. But then it very quickly came to him. And I also understand her perspective and the courtroom scene lends to her perspective a lot more, even though you can guess what her perspective was throughout the entire thing, that she didn't feel like a whole person. She was mother, and that was really it. She was broken down and reduced to a sauce of just motherhood. And upon, like she said, becoming a whole person, it opens up your eyes and you can take care of your child and be a mother while also having your own life, essentially. It's that quote quote work-life balance where she had no life and she was just all work, which was motherhood. So I understand from both perspectives. The only thing is, we talked about it when we were watching the movie, shared custody would have just been fine.
Yeah, I brought that up. I was like, hey, what would be best for both of them is a shared custody, because either of them having full custody of the child is going to be detrimental to both of them, because she doesn't want to have full custody. She had custody in the marriage and then left the marriage because she had too much of the marriage. So she would not be good with the child. And by the end of the film, she's like, okay, I think I'll leave him with you because he already is home. She recognizes that she wouldn't want him fully, even though she says she did, but she actually, like, deep down didn't. He probably wouldn't benefit from having him fully because he, as we've seen play out in the entire film, he prioritizes everything around his kid at the detriment of everything else in his life, mostly his career and whatever else. So if they both shared the child, which, most divorces have shared custody to some extent,
Yeah.
unless there's like crazy circumstances, then I think they would both drastically benefit. So that's just my point of view.
I think it's just partially the time period in the late 70s. I get the feeling that divorce and custody was a lot more feast or famine.
Sure.
And I kind of understand, like, in a way, both of them want the majority custody. I think Joanna wants it because she's like, I just spent 15 months away from him. I need to make up for that.
And the fact that she hasn't seen him being a good father either.
Exactly.
Like, she
she's
knows
like,
he's been trying, but she doesn't see the extent of it.
and what she says is like, I need my child back, not in a shared custody kind of way. She's saying, I need him back, period. Like, I need him.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Ted is like, whoa, when you left, you were giving me some major concerns with like all that stuff about wanting to kill yourself instead of being a mother.
Yeah.
So maybe you shouldn't be a full-time mother. So I actually do understand why shared/joint custody or more even custody was not on the table for these two.
That's understandable.
And I think it also does partially have something to do with pride. They both are very prideful characters.
Yes, it is a character study at its heart, and I love that because it does it so well.
Very
They
much
both
so,
have
yeah.
very clear, defined arcs, and they both end up kind of where they should, especially at the end of the movie. I thought that was a actually really satisfying conclusion. Even though you didn't see a lot of it play out, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It matters who they are and where they've come as people.
Yes, exactly.
So-
And it matters the result.
Yes.
I don't need to see her decision making on that play out because it's, I think, the correct decision.
Mm-hmm.
Where she's probably going to be seeing him more, but she wants him to have a home, and that home is home.
Yep.
Mhm.
Where he's been
Mhm.
for the entirety of the film,
Yes.
regardless of whether it was with her or with him.
Yeah, no, I absolutely loved it. The writing here, in line with the best pictures of the 70s, is so fucking strong.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
can be considered some of the best writing, maybe ever. I'm not going to say it's the best screenplay of all time. I'm just saying it fits into the category of the 70s best pictures, which has The Godfather, which has One Flew Over. The writing here is top tier. It never lets up. The scene where he tries to cook breakfast is outstanding. It's an excellent scene that works like for the characters and stuff and establishes the relationship. But thematically, it illustrates what her leaving does to them both, mostly him. And he tries to be happy with his kid and cook breakfast and continue as if nothing's wrong. But of course, it all blows up, and he has that Freudian slip, God damn her, in front of his son.
Yeah.
That's
It's
huge.
very, very good. I was also going to bring up that scene when you talked about it to further a point, too, because it's Chekhov's French toast.
It is.
Where there's the juxtaposition at the beginning of the movie and the beginning of his fatherhood of the kid more as opposed to letting his wife take care of it, where he fucks it up. He doesn't realize to use a bowl. He doesn't treat his kid like a kid in that situation. He doesn't know how to cook it well because he's putting shells in the stuff. And after the events of the film, on the last day before his mother's going to pick him up, bowl, toast, eggs,
Yes.
milk, doing it properly.
The character growth at the end of the
character
film.
growth from the end of the film. And I really like that we see his character maintain a strong facade for his child, especially towards the beginning, while breaking down basically himself.
Yep.
Especially in the one scene where he has that really big self-reflection when Billy asks, "Mom left because of me." He goes, "Nope, this is why Mom left." And it was all just a big self-reflection because he doesn't want his son to feel bad.
Yep.
I think that's really the moment where it flips, where it goes from all work, no play to, well, in that sense, all work, no fatherhood to this is the most important thing in my life. This should have been the most important thing in my life the entire time. Where he finally gets the priorities, at least, I wouldn't say straight, but more balanced. Because you still need a balance. You can't just fuck off from work because then you can't take care of your kid financially. But that scene where he's talking, I didn't let mommy be who she wanted to be. It wasn't you. It was incredible. Incredibly written. A perfect moment for the character to like not realize it, because I'm sure it's been bubbling for quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's hard to admit to yourself for something like that, and he could admit it because of he didn't want his son to have that same feeling that he was having.
So
Where this is my fault, this is my fault, this is my fault. You could see that it was eating away at him, especially during that first scene where he was like, everything's fine, we're fine, me when I'm clearly not fine. And he just lets go of it. Lets go of it bubbling and bothering, and you can see the weight lift from his like eyes, his shoulders, trying to alleviate that from his son and himself.
So what I took away from the I guess one of the main points of the movie with like, oh, how he can't balance single dad work life, child life kind of thing. First of all, the way it was executed is brilliant. I love the setups that you don't really realize are setups and they pay off later. Like, again, with the French toast scene, how it comes full circle at the end. Without that scene at the end, it's still an excellent moment and still amazing. But the fact that it grows to that is amazing. With the work life situation, I also kind of was thinking about it. Like towards the end of the movie, I was like, he was kind of in a no-win situation, because like, if you're hard at work at the job that you absolutely need, that if you get fired from, then you're going to fucking lose in court, and your kid is sick or gets in a fight or gets bit at school, and there's no other parent involved, I'm sorry, but you're leaving work. Like, that's the correct moral thing that you have to do as a parent. So when the lawyer in that scene is interrogating him like, oh, were you not late on your deadline? Yes, I missed the deadline. And he tries to explain like, well, it was because I was being the best parent possible. But obviously that scene was structured so it didn't show the cross-examination of the other witness who would say, why'd you leave? Well, because of that. Because the whole point of that scene is that we as the audience are clued in. The court is siding with her. The writing is all on the wall from the start. As you watch that scene play out, you're like, oh, he's fucked. There's no decision he probably could have made after she left where like he could not have possibly, he would need to split into two people. And like one parent, one work. It just wouldn't make
He could
sense.
have done what his boss said and let his kid live with their grandparents or whatever.
And then he's not being a father.
And then the court would argue that you weren't even a fucking father during that time. You did what she did, you know?
Yeah, but then he wouldn't care if he had custody or not, because he wouldn't have bonded with his child.
Yes.
And then the movie doesn't happen, Ian.
Well, and then
No,
he doesn't
but
get
I'm
custody.
just saying, it is a no-win situation, but for what he did.
Yeah, I'm saying there's no version where he could have gotten custody.
Yeah.
Maybe half custody, but you know that ship has sailed. But full custody, I think, was out of the question from the start. It was a completely, I mean, I say rigged, but like it's a situation like this where there's so many factors at play that are going against you that I don't know. I
mean,
appreciate he
we've talked about,
tried.
like, even today, there is still very much a heavy bias towards
Yes.
mothers in custody in courts like that.
100%.
You know, and
100%.
that's what this film is about. Is at the end of the day, like, it's gonna go to her because she's the mom and mom's raised the kids.
Mom's raised-
What does a father know?
Exactly it. It doesn't
know?
matter what he's been doing for 15 months.
Yeah, exactly.
It does, but as
It
long
does.
as there's ways you can argue that he sucks at it, they'll give it to her.
Yeah, and what I like about that courtroom scene, I don't know, I don't think either of you guys have brought this up. They have a lot of quote unquote dirt on each other. It is only Joanna's lawyer who really goes for the neck.
So his lawyer had that one scene where
Yeah.
he brought up that, or tried to make her, and successfully got her to admit that she failed the marriage on her end.
Yes.
But other than that, you're absolutely right. The
My-
rest of the vitriol was all from the other
The
side.
thing is, in that same conversation that lawyer was referencing, which is the first conversation that Joanna and Ted have when Joanna leaves, Joanna actively mentions to Ted that being a mother makes her suicidal, which is not good.
Yep.
And
very bad.
definitely something you can bring up and be like, so you told your husband when you left that being a mother makes you suicidal, and you want to be a mother and you think you're stable enough for that?
Yep.
You know, like, I know he still brought up like, oh, she was the one who left me, she failed. You know, he definitely drove it really hard, and even Ted in that scene's like, what the fuck was that? Like, that was mean.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, in context, Ted pulled his punch. He was not as mean to Joanna as he could have been, as he was at the start of the movie.
And
'cause
even
he's also still he's not the same guy.
Exactly. And yeah, during that one scene that I was saying, oh, his lawyer went in, when he asked, "Did you fail the marriage?" He's whispering no. He's mouthing no
Ted's
to
like,
her.
No, don't say that.
Don't
Like,
say
you
that,
didn't
don't do
fail,
it.
I failed.
Don't do it.
You know?
But like just the fact that like he's so driven, and yet he won't stoop himself down that low. He won't sacrifice his morals because he does care. They both care for each other. Both of these parents involved have a great deal of love and respect for each other to an extent.
Yeah.
So
when they reunite in the cafe, everything's cool, everything's fine until Joanna says, "Oh, and by the way, I'm gonna take why am I blanking on Billy? Thank you. I don't know why I blanked on the kid's name. I kept wanting to call him Charlie. I'm gonna take Billy, and that's when Ted's like, "The fuck you are," because he's like, "Whoa, like this is our reintroduction.
Yeah,
is you just telling me I'm back and I'm taking the kid? That's fucked."
you
know.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, it's Joanna's lawyer who is like, "Oh, by the way, Ted, you did this awful thing, didn't you? You almost blinded your son," which is taking what Ted said offhandedly, wildly out of context.
Which is crazy too, because like her lawyer needed to make those points because without those points, the facts are she left the family for almost a year and a third.
Yep.
Like she did that. So, and he's just trying to pick up the pieces. So what the lawyer needed to do, because again, she's a woman, they're going to side with her as long as there's reason against the man, is find all of the reasons against the man possible, even ones that stoop below the belt. Like you are responsible for your kid getting this injury, you know? Like, there's so much there.
Kids injure themselves, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly.
I got plenty of scars from my childhood.
Exactly it, dude. Yeah.
But it's hard to watch, honestly. But the nice part is there's no fluff to the court scenes. There isn't even music. And I think that really stripped back raw style really helps you to feel like you are in that courtroom.
Makes it serious. Adds gravitational weight to it for sure.
I really felt for both characters. And that's one of the reasons that I said like it portrays both sides well, even though 80% of the characters on screen is him without her. You know, she's very limited in their screen time.
Contextually speaking, she's barely in this fucking movie.
She's barely in the movie, and yet she's the other half of the title. Yeah. And one would assume that means that it's very one-sided to his position. But even though he kind of is the protagonist, it's still, like, I feel for both characters involved. She's never at any point a character that I was, like, hating. Like, oh, how dare that bitch take her fucking kid. Like, yes, there's knocks against her. You left the family, but you see why. Like...
Yeah, no, he's an asshole in the beginning, and you're like, get out of there, girl.
Her first line in the movie is, "I'm leaving you," and he remains completely unaware at first because he's so wrapped up in his job.
It's something like, "Babe, I can't hear. I'm on the phone."
Yep. Like, in real relationships, someone doesn't just up and leave. Everything's peachy. Like, Ian pointed out, there's clearly something that's been building inside of her, and as a husband, he should have been perceptive to the signs of that. But he's oblivious to how she feels.
Yeah, because he's just like, there's the wife.
Yep.
I'm supposed to have a wife. We talked about it during the film. The dynamics of Kramer versus Kramer is very much kind of, I would say, a culmination of like a cultural shift. You know, like I would say Ted got married and had a kid because that was what you're supposed to do. That's what is expected of you. And Joanna became a homesteader because that's what she's supposed to do. But it's 1979, probably 78 is when the film is set. You know, we're 15 years on from like a lot of revolutionary like ideologies and paradigm shifts in U.S. culture. So like there's a lot different expectations. You know, they grew up around that, but they're both trying to kind of force their way back into like, okay, husband, wife, children, you know, like dinner at 5.
Yeah, like prior to the past 20, 30 years maybe, when you turn like 20, everyone's asking, when are you getting married? And then when you get married, when are you having kids?
I still know kids our age. We are in our mid to late 20s, the three of us. I still know people our age who say their parents are like, so when are you having a kid?
Yep.
And spoiler alert, for our generation, most of us haven't even moved out yet.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that's fiscal.
Yeah, well, we're not getting into that.
That's a different problem.
Yeah, sometimes people just can't, all right?
We'll talk about that when we watch Slumdog Millionaire.
Looking forward to that one. That one's a good movie.
Yeah, it is.
My point is, like, you know, there's still that, like, culture thing to it where it's like I still know people who, like, I'm not even kidding. I have a friend whose father told him, and I'm quoting, "You can't move out with your girlfriend until you two are engaged."
Mm-hmm.
Insanity.
Insanity.
He's turning 27 this year. Him and his girlfriend have been together since he was 22.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're not engaged means they can't live together, according to his father.
That makes
But
no
also,
sense.
like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
For me personally, I would actually want to live with a girlfriend before I got engaged. You know,
Exactly.
Yes, because you need to know if you're compatible in the same home.
stress
Exactly.
test that shit a little
And
bit.
not for nothing, you need to be compatible for a long period of time.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I know they're gonna get married. Those two are super happy together.
Yeah, sometimes
and
you
they,
just know.
the only reason they haven't moved out is financial reasons.
Mhm.
They're not gonna let his father's stupid rules stop them. But it's like he told me that. I'm like, that is the most ludicrous shit I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like,
It's-
oh, you can't live with your girlfriend until she's your fiance, or even better, married.
Yep.
And it's just like, what the fuck?
I
You know,
would advise, yeah, you should be engaged only for like certain reasons, like tax reasons. Like it's easier to buy a house and own it if you're actually married. Just it
Yeah,
makes
no,
sense.
that's the thing. But that's not the point. I'm
No,
talking.
yeah,
like,
obviously, yeah.
I'm talking first apartment.
Yeah. Okay, that's different.
Yeah,
That's
he
just
lives-
rent.
He lives with his father and his mother. He lives at home. His girlfriend lives at home, and his dad told him they can't even move into an apartment together until they're
Yeah.
engaged.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
That's dumb.
So there's a lot of cultural differences between now and then in relation to this divorce. One of the big things is that because the trial was in January and he needed a job as soon as he got laid off before the trial so that he could have a job to have a chance of fighting in court, he needed a job within 1 day.
Yep.
And yeah, in 2024, you can get a job in 30 minutes on fucking any
You're
website.
gonna hate it.
You're
and
gonna
it's
hate
probably
it.
a scam.
And
I
it
mean,
is a
I don't
scam.
even think you. I don't
Yeah.
even think you can because all of the you can't walk into a place and get a job anymore.
Uber.
No, but
Yeah.
no,
Yes,
I mean,
you
like,
can. In
you
2024, like
I guess
you can go online and get like any job. Like there's closed captioning jobs where you literally type what people say. They'll hire you in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's easy. My point is you can get one in like minutes or hours today. Back then, to completely get a job in 1 day, next to impossible. He barely pulled it off.
And he had to take a serious pay cut.
Serious $5,000 pay cut, price inflation adjusted to like over $20,000 a year
Mhm.
less, which is, I'm sorry, if you're like a 30, 40-year-old guy, that's a massive deal if you're the breadwinner.
In marketing too, he was like a marketing executive. That
Yes.
is a massive pay cut for him,
Yes.
even if he was still living in an apartment.
Absolutely, that's a
You know,
big deal,
And
especially
especially when you have a child at home for expenses.
that you're trying to fight in court for, which will cost you $15,000 or half of your new salary. Like that's such a
Which
big
also
deal.
means it was like a little under half of his actual salary
Yes.
beforehand.
Yes,
he was making
absolutely.
33 before. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's like what, 4 months pay at best, probably 7 months of his shit
A
pay.
lot.
That's insane. But it's your kid. What are you not going to pay
Yeah,
for it? Like-
exactly. He was like, there's no way I'm not fighting this. The only reason that he doesn't appeal at the end is because the lawyer says he needs to put the kid on the stand, and Ted's like, I don't want to put my kid through that.
Yep.
Because when we are in court, when he meets with the lawyer, Billy is not on screen. Billy is nowhere near that.
Yes.
Because Ted is keeping Billy away from
I was
the custody trial.
I was paying attention to that trial too, because like at first they didn't reveal that he wasn't there. So when it cut back to the courtroom, I was like, okay, thank God, they would have shown the kid by now. If the kid was in that courtroom, that whole scene changes. Like,
Yeah.
because now the kid is getting the perspective of all the vitriol from each lawyer's side being hurled at each other, mostly her against him, and that'll impact everything. So,
Yeah.
obviously, and then by the end of the film, in that same respect that he didn't want to expose his child to more of this horrible situation with the divorce, with everything, in the same way he kept him out of the courtroom, I think in that same respect, she gives him back. She's like, I don't want to take the kid. It makes more sense for him and his upbringing since he's like, what, 8 at that point?
7.
About
7,
to be 8, probably.
About to
yeah.
be 8. Wait, was he 7 at the start of the 15 months?
No, he was 5 at the start of the 15
Oh,
months.
wow. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, this child growing up, it's best for him if, obviously, he's right. The dad made a case on the stand that, like, I have built our life together. Please don't tear that apart because of this divorce. So she finally recognizes that in her absence, which...
Well, the interesting thing is, sorry, just to cut in, the divorce goes fine. They
Yep.
are divorced.
Mm-hmm.
That's smooth. It's the custody battle,
Yes.
which is separate.
Exactly it. Yeah, no, this is a very powerful movie, and I mean, we talk about differences in time periods, but Jesus, like this is so relevant. I don't think it'll ever not be relevant. It's so
No.
No, probably
impactful.
not.
Something else that kind of stands out to me is when you were talking about like work becoming less of a priority. We don't see him fuck up the Mid-Atlantic account.
Yes.
We're
No,
just
we
told
don't.
it.
We're told it.
Because he doesn't have time to show us that in a way because his focus is on his son, and I like that.
Yeah.
That's reflected in the film. Is like he is prioritizing Billy, so we don't see him screwing up at work.
Yes.
We hear about it, sure, but that's not the point because that's not what is important to him right now.
Billy is the focus of the movie. Like he's the main character, the dad, but Billy is the point of the movie.
Yes.
So that's why when she leaves, she really is off screen for most of those 15 months because the focus is on
Joanna's
him
not around.
and he's not exposed to his mother anymore in that time period. So the focus is on him. If, say, she were an equal protagonist to the dad, maybe I'd cut back and forth, see what she's doing, but that's not relevant to the story being told. The story being told is about the kid and his fate and what's going to happen to him.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I love that. I love the execution. It's got, Jesus, it's like fucking perfect in terms of the structure. I cannot stop talking about the writing. It's so good. It's
No,
so
it's,
good.
it's very strong.
I
Wow.
like the little musical interludes at the beginning of the film too.
I like that
when
it's
everything's-
diegetic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that it's diegetic, but I also like that it's just almost like adds whimsy / normalization to the
Mhm.
scenes.
Yeah.
Especially when he's like packing up all the pictures of him, it's still doing like that main little like title theme
Yep.
because you're still unpacking the movie while he's packing her things. It's like a nice little
Yeah.
juxtaposition of just a thing he's doing.
I thought that, like, I can call it a theme. I thought the theme of the movie worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a subtle little thing I noticed that kind of speaks to like Ted's character growth actually that I noticed. Obviously at the start of the film when Joanna's trying to leave, Ted keeps trying to like claw at her and be like, whoa, hold on, what's going on? Like grab her, keep her stable. And Joanna keeps pulling away from him. And like in the moment it's just like, yeah, she's trying to fucking leave. She doesn't know like what's gonna happen if she lets him
Yep.
grab her,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But then I also noticed when Margaret comes by and she's about to leave, Ted like at one point reflexively reaches for her arm.
Mm-hmm.
And Margaret pulls her arm back away from him. And it's kind of like people are kind of recoiling from Ted, especially like the female characters. And then like later on, like him and Margaret are super chummy and he can like put his arm around her and like Ted gives Joanna a hug at the end of the movie. And I
Mhm.
think like it's kind of a physical representation of like Ted's kind of character growth, whereas before his he was very abrasive and he
Yep.
was like grabbing and
Yep.
and snatching, and now he's like, you know, he's softer with his touch because he has softened as a character.
Yeah, it's very true. And the character, like the opposing lawyer said, does have a temper. Like, I bet you if that glass scene where he smashes it in front of her wasn't improvised, if that was in the script,
It would have been brought up in
it would have been brought up as a point in the court. So I was like, wow, of course it was improvised because it's like, it lends itself. They probably didn't, realize or whatever, want to reshoot it.
No, I think it makes sense. I think it's fair to say they probably didn't realize like, oh, he kind of does have a temper actually.
Yeah, cool, because the lawyer brought up the fact that he has a temper, so it would fit nicely in that scene.
Yeah.
I will say maybe my only negative, and I don't even know if it's going to bring it down from the score.
the whole film actually.
The lawyering was a
Oh, it was a shit show.
it was
It's
played
Hollywood.
up for dramatic effect.
It's Hollywood lawyer.
You mean
Hollywood.
lawyer in film?
Lawyering was absolutely lawyering and filming, and did not actually do any lawyering. Now, granted, what My Cousin Vinny and maybe 12 Angry Men are like the big two.
Those are
accurate
the only
ones.
two ones that are accurate.
They're relatively accurate, and even they, sometimes.
Yeah,
but
but like those are great.
they're like I don't understand movie lawyers where they ask witnesses direct questions that are good, important questions that are great for their case. The witness does not answer, and then the lawyer just keeps talking or asking different questions. It's like the whole point is to get their answers so that you can make your arguments at the end of the trial. Like, if you ask him, did you fail the marriage? She says nothing, and then you just ask, like, how was dinner? Like, then later on, you can't bring up the fact that she said yes to failing the marriage. Because her just crying on her own, that's not evidence. You can't
But
bring
Jake,
that up.
that's not dramatic.
I know. It would actually be more impactful. So, and then the other thing is, like, the constant, like, the lawyers kept adding their own commentary.
Oh my god, it was so bad, dude. It was like us watching a movie.
Yeah, it was great.
It was crazy because like that's so hilariously improper. Literally, no judge would tolerate that. There's not a judge on earth that would be like, yeah, just add your own shit. Just interrogation, more like explanation. Am I right, guys?
So part of my real life job, which is obviously not this, part of my real job is I listen to a lot of transcripts of court audio. It is so funny to me because recently I covered a trial where like one of the defendants was like, no, not one of the defendants, sorry, one of the witnesses was like making commentary, and the judge was like, I swear to fucking God, if you say one more thing, I'm gonna fucking kill you. He didn't say all of that exactly, obviously, but like the patience of judges is in the fucking negatives.
Interrogation of witnesses is questions and answers. It's not an opportunity for the lawyer to jut in his opinion, even though that's the point of the case. Guess what? You have time for that later.
And again, it wasn't
weeks.
even the lawyers. It was the witness. The witness like made a snappy comment, and the judge was like, "I will fucking kill you. Shut up."
And I will say, a well-written, lawyer-accurate scene is the scene where he's on the stand defending why he kept leaving work, because that witness in that context was acting improper, and instead of saying yes or no, was saying, "Well, my kid was sick. Well, this." Because you get defensive if you're not legally trained, you know, like, oh shit, she's like, they're getting under my skin. But the judge, being a good judge, is saying like, you have to answer the question, yes or no.
Yeah.
Like, did you miss the deadline? Yes, I missed the deadline. That's how things work. But yeah, I don't know. It's a little thing. I don't even think it takes away from the score I'm gonna give it, but we'll get to scores later.
So, my biggest negative in this film is actually the ending.
Okay.
And it is, I want to wax poetic because I want to be clear about something. I am not satisfied with the ending, but if it was changed, I would also not be satisfied with it. This is call me Ted Kramer because this is a no-win situation. The fact that Joanna at the end of everything just gives up the super custody that she won, to me feels like the movie pulled its punch. But if she doesn't do that, she's the bad guy.
So, if I may,
it's not even that we can have it both ways. I don't like either way.
I will defend it, and here's why. I think it speaks to her character.
It does. It does. No, I agree. It makes Joanna a good character because Joanna is not a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it pulls the punch of the film where it's like Ted learned a lesson, but he still had everything ripped away from him. And then at the last second, the consequences are avoided.
Yes.
But at the same time, if Joanna did take Billy away, Joanna is a cruel woman.
She would be very cruel because like the whole situation was started because she left her kid. So like,
yeah,
if she like, obviously in the middle of the film when she wants her kid back, like, oh, I've done my soul searching, so now just give him back. Like, that's not how life works.
Gun to my head, I'd pick how the movie ends.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, I actually wish the movie ended with the scene of Billy and Ted going off to get ice cream.
Oh, I see why you're saying that. I just can't agree.
I understand. I know this is like a weird
I think
hill.
If you want me to be upset, yes. You're not like, if it's just a commentary about, well, no matter what you do, you fucking lose.
Mm-hmm. And more so that instead of she's the bad guy, quote unquote, it's more like the movie would become like propaganda for why men get fucked in court.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't even say propaganda because
it would be like the most.
I understand where she's coming from because he wasn't a good husband or father.
Because if you cut that last scene out, then literally the story of the movie is this guy thinks he has a normal-ish marriage, doesn't abuse, doesn't cheat, doesn't drink, gets divorced, forced to raise his kid on his own, gets fired because of it, fights desperately in court, loses, and she still has full custody and it ends. That is like, I'm just going to say that is absolutely propaganda against women in court. Like, that's just a flat out. But the fact that that scene is there to bookend it, I feel like that's like the counterbalance because you spent so much time with his character as the protagonist where it's like, actually, she's also a human being more than just a
No,
villain.
I know it's just like
I think
it's one of those things where I'm being a bitch and I'm like I can't.
No, I understand where you're coming
I
from.
also understand.
Yeah,
I
no,
think-
I just like it's like I know either way I'm unsatisfied to a degree because it is what feels best for the story and what feels best for the characters in a way.
Mm.
Like him still losing custody at the end has that like nice gut punch that like oh what a cruel twist right at the end, like oh that's so good for the story. But them making up and Joanna understanding that Ted has changed is so good for the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end of the day I'd rather
it's
go
almost
with
like it's two separate stories.
yeah. It's like, you know, part of me like the inner masochist is like I want to see the fucking bad ending where Ted loses custody even though he tried so hard just because he is the father.
I think a happy medium in this situation would have been her waking up and seeing the room she prepared for Billy and realizing that that's not his home and how much he's changed. And instead of I'm giving him fully to you, it's I'm changing the rules of the custody.
I will it's
I don't
it's
know.
also hard to understand
Yeah.
what exactly Joanna's going to
yeah.
want because I think Ted will be nice enough to be like, "All right, yeah, you can see him a little more than you were going to give me." But, you know, it's unclear at the end of the day.
So she left Ted at the start because she felt like she wasn't enough of a person, like a whole person. She
Yes.
felt like she couldn't be a proper mother to him. That's clear and obvious. So the end of the film, when she realizes that Ted has built this life, like he was saying on the stand, please
Ted
don't
is
destroy
the
it.
proper mother.
Ted is the proper mother and father.
Ted is the real mother.
He's the real mother. So she realizes that he, in her absence all this time, has built that life, and her taking that child back, the custody, has completely, not completely, but like to an extent torn it apart. I think that is so reflective on her decision to leave in the first place that now her giving the child back is doing the same or a similar action, but for the reverse effect. And I really appreciate that as like an arc.
She's not whole when she's only taking care of Billy.
Yes.
Ted is not whole without Billy.
Yes, I really
He's not
appreciate
whole
that.
when he's just
So
working.
the contrast of she's doing the same thing, she's stepping away from her child, but at the start of the film it's detrimental, and at the end of the film it's actually a benefit.
All right, new compromise. Joanna works full time. Ted becomes a stay-at-home husband.
She works in marketing.
She does. That's how they met.
She does the
film
Mid-Atlantic
implies
deal.
That's how they met.
She does the Mid-Atlantic deal. She's put in the position.
I'm just saying. Yeah, like
Oh my god.
this
But
is
no.
this is one of those memes where it's like, fellas, would you become a stay-at-home husband if your girl made 300,000? My ass. And it's
Fuck
just
yeah.
cleaning the house. Bet your sweet ass.
I'm
dude.
scrubbing
Your
those
sweet
toilets,
Bippy,
bro.
I would.
You
I-
bet
I-
your sweet Bippy, dude. That bathroom would be spotless.
I would be scrubbing my bathroom, let me
Dude,
tell
she's
you.
coming home to a dry martini every fucking night.
She's coming home dry martini.
I'm giving her head.
big
Dude.
I'm blowing her.
Dude, I don't
yes.
care how much you make. She's getting head.
She's getting super head. But yeah, no, I really like, and like I'm saying, Mud, like obviously it's not a hill to die on. You've admitted it's kind of like
I know it's
thing.
like a weird conniption, and like again, it's kind of sadistic for me to be like, yeah, I want the ending where Ted just fucking loses custody and he goes upstairs and he cries.
And I completely understand why, but for the reasons I laid out, I gotta say, I'm out. No, I watched a lot of Shark Tank recently. Gotta say the ending as is I would even say perfect, because it comes full circle with her and who she is, and it pays off everything that he's gone through. So
All I'll say is,
really
like I
appreciate
said, gun to my head, I'd pick the ending the movie has. I think it's also just like there again, it's just that sadistic part of me. I love a movie where the characters suffer for 2 hours and then the movie just ends. Like Apocalypse Now.
of course, to round out the discussion. But yeah, so
You've been
much.
fooled. I didn't think that at all. It was just a long walk for me to complain.
So actually, to kind of I do want to kind of steer the ship in the right direction here to wrap up.
Oh,
But
steering the ship? We're going upriver?
obviously- Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you prefer Apocalypse Now,
Yep.
but do you think this film, Apocalypse Now aside, do you think it was like an undeserving win?
No, not at all.
Okay.
To quote J. Cole, they act like two legends cannot coexist. I like this movie a lot. I have said that from the start, even like way back in like episodes 2 and 3 when I was complaining about the fact that Apocalypse Now didn't win. I think Kramer versus Kramer is a brilliant film. I don't think it's an undeserving win.
Mm-hmm.
I just prefer Apocalypse Now.
Like, if Annie Hall beat Apocalypse Now, I'm throwing
I would
hands.
be fucking furious.
I'm throwing
I would-
hands.
I would be calling John Academy Awards and being like, you need to
Excuse
revoke.
me, Oscar. Yeah. No, I get it. Like, for me, I think this film is a really, really good character study with a good story, because a lot of good character studies don't have the greatest story around them.
No.
Midnight Cowboy.
Midnight Cowboy.
I really love the character study. The story's kind of
The story doesn't exist in
yeah,
Midnight
exactly.
Cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this movie is a really good character study. I think it's paced really well. I think it's edited really well. There's a lot of really interesting shot selection, especially towards the end when he goes, all right, let's go get ice cream. And it follows him through the vines, stops, long haul. Really, really nice. I think it has a good use of music and a good use of lack of music.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going for it. And the screenplay is excellent. Just very well done.
Yeah, Benson's
I
a great writer.
I think I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10.
Mm.
I really like it. It is fun to watch. It's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching. It's you understand the main point of both the characters. It's not a one-sided affair, and I think that it lends really well. I still also prefer Apocalypse Now more, but I understand why this film won, and I'm not going to be like, actually, I think it's brilliant, and it could have. That's a toss-up.
Yeah.
That's one of the things where you can watch both of these films, and they're excellent for different reasons.
Like, I'm
So-
just imagining if we were ourselves in 1979 and, like, the best picture nominees came out. I'm just imagining all three of us would look at that list and go, it's Apocalypse Now or Kramer versus Kramer. It's a two-horse race.
We would be on our radio show.
we had a radio show. That's
We
the best
did.
part.
Excuse me, young man, but I really
It's
prefer
79.
Apocalypse Now.
Why are you mid-Atlantic? Why are you transatlantic? Sorry.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Excuse me, young man. I think Apocalypse Now is a little bit better than Kramer versus Kramer, but you know.
I think the other thing is, like, they are kind of uncomparable films. This
Yeah,
is
they're
a
very different.
low stakes drama. The other one is a dark epic saga.
Yeah. Godfather's still the Godfathers 1 and 2 are still the best ones, and GG is still the worst one. But this one is a polite, lovely surprise. I've only heard good things, and I wasn't expecting it to be bad. But honestly, I was expecting maybe like 7 or 8. You know, good. It's pretty great.
No, it's great. I'd like to think in all the time that I've hyped up this episode, I've always made it clear that I have a lot of respect for Kramer versus Kramer. I think this film is brilliant.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to match your score. I'm going to give it a 9.
Okay.
It's almost perfect. There isn't much that I think could be changed or improved. I don't really know what else to say. Obviously, I prefer Apocalypse Now, but I'm not upset by this victory. It's not only did Black Klansman not win, but Green Book won. You know what I'm saying?
I like both of those films you just said.
I know.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Green Book is the only nomination for that year I haven't seen.
Same, actually. I
I've
remember
seen
I remember the year that happened. We were at my house. They called Green Book, and we all just kind of looked at each other and went, "Really?"
Look, those are two excellent movies about racism, and Blind Spotting is better than both of them, and it came out the same year.
That is correct. All right, Jake, what's your score?
10. It is amazing. It is my 9th favorite Best Picture winner so far, right under Ben-Hur.
Oh,
I think very highly about this movie. I think, like I keep saying, in terms of writing, I would just call it perfection. Again, yeah, the lawyer stuff, but like when I give a movie a 10 out of 10, I don't split scores. So if it's anything on the halfway point, like if it's over a 9.5,
you round up.
I'm not calling it a 9.8273. Like it's a 10.
Joquin moment.
I'm
is
not
what
a
film's
Joquin,
10.
all right, to call him out directly.
We're making a lot of pot shots at him today off the record. I'm
several
gonna cut that.
pot shots. But like if it's like between a 6 and a 7, then I would,
Sure.
and I over 6.5, I'm gonna give it a 7. I'm not gonna, So yeah, it's a 10 out of 10. It's amazing. It is in the top 10 of the Best Picture winners at all.
It's number 12 for me.
It is. Oh Jesus! It's in the top 10 Best Picture winners, and it's below like fucking 3 other ones from the same decade.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? It's also in my top 10. It's also at number 9.
That's what I'm saying. Like it.
And 1, 2, 3, 4 other 70s films are in my top 10.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is the best decade. This is the so far.
5 other ones in my top 10.
I'm gonna say this: if the 70s is topped, I will be shocked.
I don't know when it's gonna happen.
I don't know when or if
Yeah.
it will happen. Look, I love some upcoming ones. I always talk about Gladiator. Mud, you're gonna lose your shit when Oppenheimer is brought up. But
I can't, dude. I will be honest. The 2020s are shaping up pretty well. I know you guys are not a fan of Nomadland, but I love that movie.
It was fine.
I thought it was all right. We'll get there.
Me, number one Chloe Zhao supporter in this room.
Eternals.
It's good. It's okay. It's
Not important.
It's not the worst Marvel movie.
It is.
Let me walk back what I said.
But no, more importantly, fucking love Kramer versus Kramer. Absolute deserving time. And to round out the show, audience, here's the thing. We've now run out of a time period
Where Mary Pickford is alive.
where she's alive, A, and B, the Razzies don't exist. Because in 1980 is the first worst picture award.
The Golden Raspberry Awards.
So
Yeah.
we're going to do commentaries on the worst pictures, and we're going to line up the commentaries so they come in relatively close to the best picture episode. So
Roughly within a week.
within a week, I would say, maybe Saturday to Saturday. We're going to do the next episode, Ordinary People and Can't Stop the Music. We're going to record the normal best picture show for Ordinary People, but we're going to commentate over Can't Stop the Music. And we're going to discuss how we feel about everything in totality. So this show is going to have a wild ride from here on out. The second half of the Best Picture saga winner things past the 51 or 2 mark point is insane.
It's time to go Hamboni.
It's
Let's
time to
just
remember.
say we called it the Best and Worst Pictures podcast for a reason.
So in the intro, I think I might shorten the intro now because
Please do.
I always say it's because we determine the best and worst pictures. Best pictures as compared to the other winners. Now it's actually the best and worst picture winners. Now
is.
that actual title makes a different meaning.
The Mary Pickford era of this show is over.
It is.
In a way, the golden age of cinema has ended because we're out of the 70s.
We're going
yeah.
to schlock.
Once
We are going to schlock.
going straight to schlock.
Crash
let me tell
is closer than it ever has been before,
Oh
fellas.
God.
ya. Oh, by the way, look, One Flew Over the
This
Cuckoo's
decade.
Nest is the best one, and Tom Jones is still the worst one.
Godfather and Greatest Show on Earth.
Do you for 1 or 2, or is it the same thing to you?
Part 1.
Part 1, okay. All right.
1 and 2 are the same film to me, but when we do our top 10 of the 1970s, I can't do that because
You
that'd be
can't-
top 9.
You're forced to split them.
Yep.
So,
All right.
we'll see you for the the ranking of the best and worst pictures of the 1970s.